Okay, we're back. Our next storyteller. This gentleman and his wife Jan just moved to Frenchtown in February this year. So while new to Frenchtown, Jan's family has been in Frenchtown for over 100 years. This gentleman has worked over 15 years as a psychiatric hospital employee before becoming a social studies and economics teacher for the last 25 years. Now retired, but he continues to enjoy transforming space through renovating and landscaping. Please welcome Gregory Ammon.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everybody. So, Rick was talking about how people in Frenchtown were connected. And, I've thought some about this, people being interconnected. I've heard about it all my life. The Stoics believe that we're so interconnected that the universe is actually, everything in the universe is actually one living being. And the Taoists believe that we're not individuals, that we're really all interconnected, interdependent. And the Buddhists believe we only exist in relation to one another. And of course, the indigenous cultures have been teaching our interconnectedness in various ways. But I don't know if I really buy it, because if we were that connected, there'd be cables all over, wires. I don't see it, so I don't know if I believe it. But I was a freshman at Lycoming College in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, about 1975. And it was a winter night. It was late winter, and Williamsport kind of wet snow coming down. It was after 9, it was dark. And I had a paper due the next morning. And hadn't done a thing about it. I was in a psych class called Aging in Society, and I was supposed to have interviewed an elderly person, written it up, and tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. present it to the class. And I'm going, oh man, I've done it again. And I put on my military overcoat, Vietnam Army surplus, long overcoat, green overcoat, my beaver skin wide brim hat, and I walked out down to the streets of Williamsport. And every time I approached an elderly person, they'd like scuttle off into the darkness and the snow and disappear. And I'm like, I'm in trouble. So I went to the last resort, always for everybody in Williamsport, which was the Busy Bee, which is this hole-in-the-wall kind of diner restaurant on the main street. And I walked in there, and it was just about empty, but over in the corner was this woman sitting alone. She must have been at least 85, deeply wrinkled face, cigarette hanging out of her mouth. And I thought, there she is, there she is. And I started walking towards her, and I thought, I haven't really figured out, should I tell her that this is an interview, or how, what's the ethics of this? And by the time I had really thought of this, I was right in front of her, and I said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? She goes, oh, sure. Hers was empty, and I went and bought 2 coffees, came back, sat down, and I said, I'm a student at Lycoming College. She lit up. She goes, my family's lived next to the college for close to 100 years, and we owned this house back when it was Dickinson Seminary. We watched it change into the college, and she just really enjoyed watching the life of the college from being next to it all these years. She went on, and she told me about her entire life, her family, that she was a waitress. She still was waitressing at the VA, at the Veterans Bar, at the tavern. And she told me her husband was in the VA hospital dying of cancer, that he had been there for quite a long time. So she smoked the entire time. I enjoyed the secondary smoke. I was smoking at the time, and it was just, but she told me her whole life story, basically. And I thanked her. I never told her this was an interview. Forgive me. And I was up till 2 in the morning with my Smith & Wesson electric typewriter, typing this up. 9 o'clock in the morning, I presented, dark circles under my eyes. I presented to the class, but they loved it because it was like, here's this woman who lived right next to the college. She knew the college. That spring, I went back to Jersey for the summer, worked, In the fall, I came back and switched majors from psychology to music. I love music and didn't know a thing about it, really, not much, not enough to be majoring in it. But I was down in under the chapel. They had these soundproof booths for practicing piano. And I was trying to learn piano. And it's just tedium, and just struggling with scales. And I looked through this narrow window, the door of the soundproof booth, and there's this guy in a beige polyester suit walking up the hallway, looking lost, and I pushed open the door, happy for a distraction, and said, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm looking for Mrs. V, the piano teacher." I said, "I think she's with a student." I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, I'm the Methodist pastor from up the road, and we just had a funeral up on the hill, and the guy who fills in the grave afterwards called out sick. So I'm looking for a student to fill in the grave." Well, the holidays are coming, it's fall. I said, "I'll do that." He goes, "Go change into some dirt clothes. I'm in the blue station wagon in the parking lot." And so I go to my change, I come out, I'm get in the station wagon with him, and off we go. Out of the college, out on the Main 220, driving down and then up this hill, up this dirt road alongside a fairly substantial cemetery. And as he's driving this on this dirt road, and the fall leaves are colored, and I said, "Tell me something about the person I'm going to bury." Meanwhile, I look back behind us, Lycoming Valley, the Susquehanna River Valley. There are like 40,000 people who live around Williamsport and the surrounding area. And he says, "Well, he was a veteran, and he was in the hospital dying of cancer for like a year and a half. And he said his wife was also a waitress at the VA and at the Veterans Building, and she's buried next to him." So he lets me out of the car, and he says, "The grave's right there, you can see the pile of dirt." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "I'll be back in like an hour or so to pick you up." I get out of the car, and I pretty soon I'm standing on her grave, shoveling dirt into this casket, the first shovel load. I look down, it's this white casket with a crucifix on top. First shovel load hits this casket, just hollow. It was plastic, and it's like, oh man, this is what you get as a veteran. But I'm filling in the grave. It's this chilly kind of fall, and the wind's blowing, the leaves are shifting. After a while, I take a break, and I look down at her grave, and I thought, what is this that 7, 8 months ago, I interviewed this woman, basically without knowing, let her do her whole life review 4 months before she died. What is that? And I've never really known, but it's always made me think about our interconnectivity. Thank you.